Hello, and welcome to Gathering Self-Sufficiency. Country life is great. I love it out here. But it does have its drawbacks. And if you're planning on getting a piece of property, you're looking, something you're interested in, there's some things that you might want to know. Every situation's different. Every piece of property is different. So you might not have these things to deal with where you're going to, but hopefully this will get your wheels spinning and just understand that it is hard work. But in the end, it's all worth it. So stick around as we walk through our property and just show you some of the stuff that we've dealt with through the years. This is our lane. It's a dirt lane, so that means we have to maintain it. The main thing that you're going to deal with a dirt lane is going to be obviously the dust. Your car's going to be dirty all the time, but also potholes. Nobody's going to come fill those for you. So if you don't have a tractor, you're going to be hauling a lot of wheelbarrows of gravel down to the lane and putting it in here. If you do have a tractor, you still have to do the work. We have a tractor now, but for years and years and years, we hauled gravel down here first in a wheelbarrow before we had a four-wheeler. After that, we ended up getting a cart and just hooking it to our four-wheeler and hauling it that way. But it's a lot of work if you don't want a bumpy ride. So I'm standing right on our property line, right at the canal. So all of this bare dirt that you see, if you don't do anything about it, it's going to be weeds. So every year, early spring, late February, March, we come down here and we spray pre-emergent every single year. Nobody's going to do that for you. The ditch company will take care of the ditch. The ditch company will burn some weeds, but it's typically what's in the ditch. This is the other side of the lane down our property line. And again, you end up with a lot of weeds. So we have to spray all this too every year. Now, we did make it a little easier on ourselves. We put weed barrier down all the way down here, and then we covered it with gravel. And then we planted a tree line here. There's a lot of different stuff you can do, but that's what we ended up doing. And to make it easier on yourself, wherever you have trees or plants, try to run irrigation to them so that you don't have to go over there and bring the water to it. Okay. So behind me, I've got what should be a pasture, but right now it's just a field full of weeds. That's a really important point to make, the differences between country living and subdivision life. You're living in a subdivision, you're dealing with concrete and grass. Out here, if it ain't concrete and it ain't grass, it's probably weeds. We've been very diligent, mostly my wife, to pull goat heads and try to keep them off of our property. I was out here last year and I ran my tractor out there. It brought up a bunch of goat heads to the surface that weren't out here before. So that's another thing that you need to watch out for. Goat heads will lie dormant, and if you go to messing around with the soil, you could have some come up on you. So the last thing I was talking about, the grass, concrete, weeds. We have a lot of grass. But unlike people living in subdivisions, we can't just throw it in the magic box and have somebody take it away. There's too much of it. So we have to find different ways to use this. Out here is one of our gardens. We're going to be planting corn in here this year. So we're using the grass, we haul it from the yard, and we dump it in here. And then we let the chickens come over here and cultivate it for us. So we lay it on the ground and we let it lay dormant. It covers all the weeds up until we're ready for it to do what we need it to do. So we just let it compost into the soil. We're out here at our wood pile, and there's a lot of it. If you want to heat your home with wood heat, it's going to be some work. So here we are, middle of April, and we've already got a lot of our wood for this year. But I've got some of it cut into rounds. I still got to split it, still got to stack it, and make sure that it's ready to go for this winter to heat our home. So you can see all this wood out here. There's probably, I don't know the exact amount, but it's in between 12 to 15 cords. And it's not the greatest wood on the planet. We've got a mixture of cottonwood and catalpa. And a good friend of mine, he noticed that they were cutting down trees right there at his place of work. And he called me up and he said, "Hey, do you want this?" And I said, "Yeah." He was nice enough to load a lot of it up there at work for me. And then I'm just out here bucking it up and working it up. If you don't have a connection like that, there are a lot of different ways that I've found free firewood. And I generally don't pay for it. You want to watch, look, and listen. Keep your ear to the ground for different things. A lot of times what I do is when I'm driving back and forth to work or just to anywhere, I've always got my eye open for firewood. There's been lots of times where I've seen a tree down at somebody's property and I go and I knock on the door and I say, "What are you doing with that tree?" And oftentimes they'll say, "Nothing, I don't have a wood stove." So if they just want it out of their hair, you can go there, cut it up, load it, and you've got some free wood. Other places you can look, Facebook, Craigslist, or any of those other social media outlets. Another really good place to look is your local ditch company. They go down the ditches or canals every year and they clear trees out. Those trees have to go somewhere. They can't just lay them right by the canal and call it good. A lot of times they bring them back to their yard, and if you call them up, depending on where you live, you could get some free firewood out of the deal. Last year, I was able to go and get close to 8 cords. Me and my brother-in-law went out there together and we split the lot. Sure, it's a lot of work, but getting firewood's a lot of work too. So if you can do it this way, you can save yourself some time. So some people say that chickens are the gateway animal to all kinds of other livestock. And part of that is because they are so easy to tend. There's really not a lot you have to do. These are weeds we pulled from the garden this morning. We normally free range our chickens, but when you can't free range your chickens, or if you don't want to, you can pull weeds and give those to them. They'll treat this the same way as they would if they were free ranging out there. They love it. And these are wood chips. We've got a big pile of wood chips that we got for free out there. We just throw them out here and they like those too. Your ground will get wet if you live anywhere that has any rain. So you need to be able to have a way to soak that up. And wood chips are a good way to do it, but you got to do it. We've seen it out here where this place was just wet and nasty looking, and you have to have a way to make your animals comfortable. This is a walnut tree, and we planted it on the east side of the chicken coop so that in the summertime they get shade. We don't free range in the summertime because we have a garden and lots of plants that the chickens love to peck at. If you saw the video from this winter, this is a wood shed that I was building for free. You have to have a place to store your wood. We store it in all kinds of different places. This is the next place that we're going to be putting our wood. but you have to have somewhere to put it so that it can be dry, and then so that if you have green wood, so that you can cure it. You probably noticed all the stuff here. It just looks like random stuff probably to most people. These are different building materials that I've got. Um, I've got this English walnut that I've built some stuff out of. That's another thing about living out where we do. We have room to put things. And so I'm always on the lookout for something that I can repurpose so that I can build things for little to no money and still end up with a good structure or whatever it may be in the end. You are looking at a giant pile of wood chips, and they didn't cost us a dime. Wood chips are great for all kinds of different stuff. You already saw one use for them over there in the chicken coop. How did we get them all for free? There are multiple ways, but this is how we did it. So the power companies, they will hire a subcontractor to come out and cut branches and trees out of the way of the power lines. Again, they have to have somewhere to put this stuff. There's not just this magic place where tree branches go. So they chip it all up, and a lot of times they're looking for somewhere to dump that stuff. So my wife called the power company and asked if we could get on their list of places to drop their chips. You've probably heard of Chip Drop or other places like that. So she put her name on the list. One day they were out here in our area and they called her up and they said, "Hey, we've got some wood chips. Can we drop them off?" And she said, "Yeah." Then the guy said, "Well, we have over 20 loads." She said, "We'll take all you got." So now we have enough wood chips to do whatever we want with. One of our favorite parts about living in the country is we have all these little happy places that we have around our property. This is one of our happy places. Sit here underneath this structure that we made and just look at nature. It's great. A person doesn't have to go here or there and be entertained all the time. Sometimes you can just relax, sit down, and just enjoy what's around you. Think about the things that you like, whether it be flowers or plants or animals, whatever it may be, and create little happy places on your property where you can just sit and enjoy just being. Here's our orchard. So some more weeds to contend with. You've got trees you've got to prune, and if you spray, some people don't, you've got to spray. Trust me, if you don't, you've got lots of insects. It's been pretty warm here, so everything is bloomed out, but last night, wasn't paying attention. This tree right here, peach tree, it froze, and I've got probably 3/4 of the tree. I'm not gonna get any fruit off of it. Here's a cherry tree. There's another one over there. Same thing. The frost got them, and hopefully we'll get some cherries. Then the next thing to worry about is the birds. When the fruit starts to set, and as soon as it gets ripe, those birds know it. They'll be here and they'll be eating it. So you got to do something about that too. If you saw any of my videos this last winter about firewood, you probably recognize this space. It was full of wood. But now there's all kinds of different building materials over here. This is all stuff that I have gotten for free or kept what wasn't useful for the job that I was doing. Got a bunch of leftover galvanized roofing here, and then several pallets. Those are things that you can utilize for your wood stack. Get your wood up off of the ground, stack it on there, and it will help air to circulate through there and cure it. So this is one of my wife's ideas. This is an old box spring that we had. We took all the fabric off. It works really well for stacking wood on. Pallets, box springs, whatever you can do to keep your wood up off the ground, it's a good bet. This is the north side of our property, and as you can see, we have raised beds. Having raised beds does not take care of all the issues. Yes, it is easier for us to water and easier for us to pick and weed. The beds are virtually weed free, pretty close. So we still got a little bit of work there. But out here, we even put down weed barrier and we still get weeds out here. So we want, of course, our garden to look good. So we still have to come in here and we have to weed this, and it's due for some weeding. I'm standing over here by our blackberry stands. They're really easy to build, and we really like them. Also, the berry that we planted here, it's a thornless blackberry. We really like it too. We like it so much that we decided we're going to extend this towards the yard. So as you can see right here, we have more of that free mulch. And all we're doing is we're putting it on top of the grass and we're smothering that grass. That's actually going to be less work for us. So on top of that, our raspberries that are over here, they have always struggled. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing that we've got going on over there, and we're going to bring the raspberries out. We're going to have one stand of raspberries out here, and we're going to turn the other raspberry stand, the existing one, into another black cap stand. And if you don't know this about black caps, they make awesome jelly. As we walk out into our yard and head towards the greenhouse, we follow this flagstone path, which was a lot of work, but it looks good, doesn't it? Now, having a greenhouse is great, and it was a lot of work to build it, but they don't take care of themselves, and there's certain things that you definitely have to pay attention to if you have a greenhouse. One thing that's really important on a greenhouse is to make sure that you have good airflow and it doesn't get too hot in there. There are different days where it's hotter or it's colder. It's just whatever it's going to be that day. So pay attention to temperature. And if you need to prop the door open, do that. We have one specific variety of tomatoes right here that my wife saved the seeds on and started. She started them in the house. We've got them in the greenhouse right now, hardening off. The Amish paste tomato, if you like canning, it's pretty hard to find, at least where we're at. When John Denver said, life on the farm is kind of laid back, he meant kinda. Yeah, there's times where it is laid back and there's times where we can just sit around and relax. But there is a lot of work involved living out here on your own piece of property. I wouldn't have it any other way. I love it. There are a million positive things that I could talk about. I wanted to do a little bit different video today. And I hope if you're looking for property and this is your dream, that I've been able to kind of offer some insight into what it's really like. Now, every piece of property has its own drawbacks and different people make different decisions. Maybe you won't have an orchard. Maybe you won't have wood heat. These are the choices we've made. These are the things that we want to do. We don't do it because we have to. If we didn't want an orchard, we'd just cut it down. If we didn't have a wood stove, we'd just turn on the furnace. But I think one of the most important things about living out here and this lifestyle, the work that you put in, is what you can teach your children from that. We've raised 3 children here and taught them to work hard, and things just aren't always given. They're earned. In today's world where everybody just wants to get things and have things and they say they deserve things, you don't deserve anything, really. But if you work for it, you'll probably get it. We appreciate each and every one of you that watches this video, and I hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you next time.